New works are out. Welcome everyone to read my works in Fei Lu novels. I hope everyone can enjoy them. Your attention is the driving force behind my writing, and I will strive to tell every story well. This mysterious world, from the original Daoism to the current demon contract, only took 15 years. Will this world still change after 15 years? Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I suggest starting from chapter 15 of this novel. The first 15 chapters can be considered as a spin-off of this novel. Chapter 1 later, I thought it was some evil people who used magic to take away your child's soul, and it could also be an evil ghost or a wild ghost on the mountain, but none of them were the three uncles who immediately extinguished the brazier after speaking, and then the three uncles sprinkled the wine in a glass, but what spilled out was red. My mother fell into a coma when she heard that black and white impermanence had taken my soul away. Grandpa and father immediately took my mother and me back home, and Uncle San followed suit in a while. Uncle San dared to take even my child's soul while walking, cursing the dog's foster mother. After Uncle San arrived at the gate, he immediately took out a yellow talisman and pasted it in the middle of the gate. When father saw Uncle San doing a good job, he immediately spoke up and said, "What should we do?" As the father spoke, tears welled up in his eyes. He immediately knelt down and said, "Please, you must save my child." After seeing this, Uncle San quickly helped his father up and said, "I will definitely save your child's life. Don't worry, but you need to tell me the birth date and 8 characters of your child." Father quickly replied, and uncle pinched his fingers and said to his father, "Your child's birth date is the death character." "How could this be so?" Father replied. Uncle San continued, "Have you ever offended anyone recently, causing death?" After listening to this, the father thought for a moment and said, "Yes, I remember a monk came to ask for a fast a few years ago. After his mother gave it to him, mother asked the monk to calculate the birth date of Wa. Unexpectedly, the monk opened his mouth and came to give alms. How can you calculate the birth date of a dead person for me?" After hearing this, his mother looked back with a machete and asked, "How you spoke? My child is living well. How can we say he is a dead person?" But the monk went to grab the baby and shouted, "Life is dead. Dead alive." In a fit of anger, Ma slashed at the monk's head with a knife. The monk immediately ran away, and when he was found, he had been dead for 2 or 3 days. After thinking about it, San Shu said to his father, "That must be the situation where the monk went down to sue." After hearing this, my father angrily said, "Dead monk. Dead monk." At this moment, the mother woke up and the father immediately told her. After hearing this, the mother scolded the monk's ancestors for not leaving any of them. After the parents calmed down, the third uncle asked, "Do you know who took the child out?" After thinking for a moment, my mother quickly said that he was stunned by the mothers in the surrounding villages. My father continued, "We are the only village around us. Is it difficult?" "That's right. It's not the person who went out with your child." After hearing this, my mother took a cold breath. Most of these ghosts were meant to take your child to black and white impermanence. Fortunately, your child's destiny is great, and black and white impermanence only took away 2 souls and 5 souls. If someone else had gone underground long ago, we have 2 ways now. One is to summon other souls, and the other is to go to black and white impermanence to ask for souls. After hearing this, my mother asked Uncle San, "What would happen if we summon other souls?" The third uncle replied that if your child is not your child, their personality may change, their age may also change, and there may be problems such as sequelae in the future. After hearing this, my mother choked up and asked Uncle San, "Is there any risk in that other way?" After listening, Uncle San said, "No, but the child must come with me." After thinking about it, my parents said goodbye. Uncle San nodded and stood up before me. After drawing fate on yellow paper and pasting it on my forehead, I went to get the prepared jade. Uncle San broke the jade and took out a small piece of jade from inside and placed it in the middle of a bracelet. After finishing it, he brought it to me. Then Uncle San shouted out, "Life de Hualien." I saw blood letters flashing on my body. After finishing his work, Uncle San sat beside him and said, "I borrowed your child's soul for a week. After a while, he woke up and only had 2 days to spend with you. In 2 days, I will pick him up. Later on, we'll see how black and white impermanence talks." After the third uncle finished speaking, he explained and left. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I woke up, and my mother cried for a long time holding me. After a while, when my family calmed down, my mother told me about what happened after I fell into a coma. However, I couldn't calm down for a long time after listening, especially knowing that I was playing with ghosts. 2 days were very short. 2 days later, Uncle San came to my house to pick me up, but I didn't know it was the last time I met my parents. Uncle San's house is located far from the village. As Uncle San came at night, it was already midnight when he arrived at his house. Uncle San's house has many magical tools and many boxes with talismans pasted on them. There is also a mirror outside Uncle San's house. Uncle San asked me to sit down and mysteriously told me that what you lost was not your own soul, but someone else's third uncle. After he finished speaking, I didn't understand at all. Before I could ask Uncle San, I spoke up and said, "There is another soul on you, which is opposite to the underworld." He was locked in the underworld and unable to reincarnate. When he was about to be captured by black and white impermanence, he crawled into your mother's belly. I nodded and asked Uncle San, "Did black and white impermanence hook the wrong soul?" The third uncle replied exactly like this. After talking to me for a while, he suddenly asked me, "Do you still remember the faces of those little ghosts?" After thinking for a while, I said, vaguely remembering that Uncle San took out paper and pen from a box and passed them to me. In no time, I finished drawing. Uncle San saw the ghost I drew and said, "You see, Jojo has seen it too much, right? How to draw it like this ghost?" I just smiled at Uncle San's answer. After Uncle San made the bed, we rested. The next morning, when I woke up, Uncle San had already gone out. When Uncle San was not around, I visited the 8 trigrams formation on the wall, which was filled with gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. After watching for a long time, it looked like a disc made of stones by a child. Uncle San came back in no time. When Uncle San came back, he had already climbed the mountain. The first thing he did was tell me to prepare for us to go up the mountain immediately. After listening, Uncle San and I tidied it up together. In no time, we were ready. At the crossroads on the mountain road, I saw an old man standing motionless in front of me. I told Uncle San what I saw. After hearing this, Uncle San took out a piece of paper money and threw it on the ground. As soon as I heard a sound, Uncle San held his mouth down. Uncle San let go and gestured for me to watch him operate quietly. Uncle San said to the old man, "Where is the divine? Dare to block my way." The old man didn't move, and Uncle San recited a spell. Suddenly, the paper money on the ground burned and the old man disappeared. Uncle San let me go when he saw the old man disappear. In no time, we arrived at the mountaintop. Uncle San took out the black dog blood he had prepared and scattered a small circle in the area with the heaviest yin qi. He placed a yellow talisman in the middle of the circle, and Uncle asked me to sit inside. When those little ghosts smelled the scent of humans, they would come towards me. At that time, he was cleaning up those little ghosts. Uncle San told me not to move after 12 o'clock, not to open my mouth or eyes. If someone calls me, I must not answer, ghosts will deceive people. If someone impersonates him, I must be able to judge. When the clock rang at 12 o'clock, I had been sitting for almost 4 hours and my feet were numb. However, I heard a different sound, like laughter, but the laughter was too eerie. I quickly realized that a ghost was approaching me, my heart was beating wildly, and the terrifying laughter was getting closer and closer to me. Suddenly, I heard a scream. I knew it was a bold ghost who had touched the blood of a black dog, and the cold air kept blowing towards me. In order to calm down, I kept thinking about Walnut's wife. I thought to myself, and then I heard Uncle San's voice, "The child can get up." I just opened my eyes, but no one was fooled. I immediately closed my eyes, but those ghosts had already noticed me. I could feel those crazy ghosts charging towards me. At that moment, Uncle San's voice rang out, "Cowboy." I seemed to grab the life-saving straw and immediately got up and ran towards where Uncle San was making sound, but there was no Uncle San, only 3 ghosts floating and smiling at me. It's done. These ghosts played a mid-game game against me, and now it's no longer useful within the circle. I froze in place when the real third uncle appeared from behind me. 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as Uncle San appeared, those little ghosts ran and disappeared. Uncle San seized the opportunity to trap the 3 escaping little ghosts with a red rope. I came behind third uncle and he said, "Fortunately, I came quickly, otherwise you would be gone." Then, third uncle looked at those little ghosts and asked, "Where is the habitat of black and white impermanence now?" After a while, the 3 little ghosts said, "Big brother, we were wrong. Please let us go." Uncle San was angry and told them to answer my question first. The little ghosts dared not reply. Third uncle took out his peachwood sword and pointed it at the little ghosts. The little ghosts looked at each other and immediately said, "In the east city of the underworld." After listening, Uncle San let go of those little ghosts. In no time, we went down the mountain. After we went down, Uncle San told me that he would help me find my soul and soul tomorrow night. Then we went to bed. The next morning, Uncle San went out again. When he came back, he brought back many cards with the words "Entering the Underworld" on them. I curiously asked Uncle San what was the use of these cards. Uncle San looked at me, who was young and ignorant, and said, "These signs are the only way to enter the underworld. I have stored 14 signs for a long time." I nodded after hearing this, and Uncle San told me, "We will go find your soul tonight." After Uncle San finished speaking, he took me out. However, Uncle San deliberately avoided the road to our village. We only went so far to retrieve livestock, and it was already midnight when we returned. Uncle San put away the livestock and went to prepare the magic tools. Uncle San took out the 8 trigrams diagram and a bell from the box, and then we went to the backyard. Uncle San's backyard was completely different from ours. His backyard was large and tall, while ours was for livestock and thatched houses. Uncle San placed the 8 trigrams diagram in the middle of the yard, and I guessed that Uncle San was not entering the underworld for the first time. After Uncle San placed the 8 trigrams diagram, he took out a peachwood sword and wiped it into the middle of the diagram. After finishing it, Uncle San erected the sign for entering the underworld in front of the 8 trigrams diagram, with a high energy in front. Uncle San is ready to enter the underworld. After finishing, he knelt down on one knee and tightly grasped the handle of the peachwood sword with both hands. Then, the 8 trigrams diagram emitted bursts of light and quickly expanded. He saw that the 8 trigrams diagram continued to expand. When Sanshu saw it, he forcefully inserted the sword into it, and then the light disappeared. I looked at the wooden door appearing on the gossip map, my face full of shock. Uncle San stood up and patted the dirt on his feet, telling me not to tell anyone what you saw today. When Uncle San said no to these 2 words, his tone became very serious. I nodded to Uncle San and promised, "Uncle San, I promise I won't tell anyone everything I saw today." Uncle San also nodded after listening. Then Uncle San took out a copper gourd and hung it on my chest. You must not take it off when you go underground, otherwise I don't know what will happen. After Uncle San hung it up for me, he spun his peachwood sword and saw the wooden door slowly open. Uncle San glanced at me and led me inside. We walked down about 50 meters and saw an elevator. I looked up and down curiously. There was a fat man standing in front of the elevator door. Oh, no, it should be described as a fat ghost. There was no blood on its face. It had liquid foundation on its white face. The mouth bar was painted with lipstick. It looked like a paper man. As soon as it saw the third uncle, it bowed and said hello to the third uncle. The third uncle nodded to it and called me into the elevator. I was still wondering why it called the third uncle. It looked like it was afraid of the third uncle. Before I could think of the elevator, it was very negative. On the 18th floor, my uncle asked me to follow him and we went out. I just got out of the elevator door and found there was also an elevator nearby. There were 5 or 6 ghosts lining up. I looked at them laughing and playing and almost forgot that we were in the dungeon. Before we could walk for a while, a few soldiers appeared in front of us. They were actually soldiers from the underworld. They were a huge organization. The soldiers saw Uncle San and leaned towards both sides. I saw these ghosts showing so much respect to Uncle San, so I looked back at the invincible man in front of us. After walking a few kilometers, Uncle San told me that the river ahead was the Forgotten River. After crossing the Forgotten River, we arrived at the habitat of black and white impermanence. However, Uncle San specifically instructed me not to turn back when crossing the Forgotten River. After crossing the bridge over the Forgotten River, I heard something calling me, which sounded like parents. I dared not turn back to see the good and accelerate my speed. After a while, I heard something again. People are calling me, and although I haven't turned back, my heart is still very curious about what is calling me. Without any problems, I successfully crossed the river of Forgotten River. After receiving the affirmative answer from Uncle San, I looked behind me, but at that one glance, my heart cooled halfway, and there were ghosts behind me. We walked a few hundred meters further and arrived at the habitat of black and white impermanence. I saw a luxurious courtyard in front of us, and I was stunned as I looked at it. However, Uncle San didn't seem surprised. Uncle San walked straight to the courtyard door and skillfully borrowed the lock, but Uncle San's style didn't work after 2 or 3 minutes. Then Uncle San kicked open the courtyard door, causing the bulky courtyard door to fall apart. The loud voice made 2 tall, black, and white ghosts float out. Uncle San stood there angrily and shouted, "I don't understand what password you want to change." The black and white ghost immediately knelt down and shouted, "My disciple, pay respects to my master." I was even more certain that Uncle San's identity was definitely extraordinary when I heard them call him Master San. Uncle San didn't care about the door lock after seeing them and said directly, "Since you are here, then I won't keep it a secret. Tell me. Did you seduce a child's soul a few days ago?" They all spoke in the same voice after hearing it, "Master." After listening, Uncle San nodded and asked, "Are you fishing for the souls of criminals who are opposed to the underworld?" Black and White Wu Chang nodded immediately. Uncle San told them what happened to me, and the 2 ghosts nodded awkwardly. Uncle San personally returned my soul to my body, and then took out the prisoner's soul from my body. After finishing it, I only felt that my body suddenly felt relaxed and happy. Uncle San calculated my birth chart and saw no problem. The boulder in his heart was also lowered. Before we left, Uncle San used magic to repair the courtyard door, and Black and White Wu Chang took us to the elevator. After being taught a lesson by the third uncle at the door, he finally let them go. When he returned to the land, it was already dawn. Looking at the sky, I couldn't help but feel happy. I even composed a poem on sight, "My soul has returned, and the sun shines on my heart." The Dharma and Tao are invincible, only a young move is visible. After hearing this, Uncle San nodded and said, "You finally have an idea." Just as I was feeling proud of Yang Yang, Uncle San told me earnestly. 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Uncle San saw that I was in a good mood, his tone changed and he earnestly told me a shocking event. Let me tell you something, but you must hold on. After listening, I suddenly felt uneasy while listening to Uncle San's words. Uncle San said, your village has been slaughtered, and no one has survived. After listening, I was stunned for more than 10 seconds. When I regained my senses, I realized that I was trembling. I felt like I was about to faint, but no. No. Maybe. Impossible. I cried out in despair, and Uncle San solemnly told me, although my child is also. But this is the fact. The king of hell ordered them to die at the 3rd watch. Who dares to stay until the 5th watch? These are all fate. As I watched the strong 3rd uncle turn around, tears welled up in the corners of my eyes, but my mood calmed down. I asked the 3rd uncle about the situation, and it turned out that a very powerful evil spirit was attracted to the white sand that appeared during the summoning ceremony in our village. It was the double of the evil spirit that appeared during the summoning ceremony. However, at that time, the 3rd uncle was focused on summoning the evil spirit and did not pay special attention to it, but it was precisely because of this that the subsequent events occurred. After Uncle San finished speaking, he turned around feeling very guilty. After hearing this, I only felt a pang of sadness. However, when I was about to collapse, I felt someone comforting me again, and this kind of comfort immediately made me feel calm. It felt like someone was guiding me in the dark. After thinking for a while, I quickly followed Uncle San and said, Uncle San, I want to learn Taoism with you. As I grew up, I also became a Taoist. Uncle San seemed to look at me and behind me as expected. In Uncle San's eyes, I saw a familiar person nodding and disappearing. Uncle San turned around and looked at me, saying, Are you sure you want to follow me? I looked at Uncle San and answered him with a firm gaze. Uncle San then asked me to go out together. We had only walked a few hundred meters when Uncle San stopped. I looked at Uncle San with confusion. Uncle San smiled at me and saw a large white crane flying over. Uncle San waved to the crane and it stopped in front of Uncle San. Uncle San touched the crane's head, and the crane let out a cry as if welcoming its owner back. Uncle San picked me up, and as I looked at the back of this huge creature, I couldn't help but think of Wendy's pet, Tuvalan. After Uncle San asked me to sit down, he also sat up, but he was sitting by the neck of the white crane. When Uncle San sat down, the white crane flapped its wings and flew towards the sky. I screamed, but Uncle San was enjoying it. When the white crane flew out of the clouds, I saw an unparalleled beauty that I had never seen before. Sitting on a green mountain, I watched the blue river below and the trees on both sides sing a poem. The green mountains went from there, and the water was as clear as my heart. There were no flaws on both sides, only those with a heart. After hearing this, Uncle San turned around and smiled at me, saying it was good, but I didn't pay any attention to Uncle San's praise. I looked at the handsome young man in front of me with his mouth wide open, but he didn't care about my expression and looked at the scenery in front of me. When I regained my senses, he had already reached a tall, domineering, and luxurious zhuang ting in front of me. I jumped off his back and couldn't help but walk over. But before I could get too close, a woman appeared in front of me, holding a precious sword and pointing it at me. 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uncle San smiled at the woman and said, All right, all right. I saw the woman looking at Uncle San in surprise, and Uncle San also nodded at her. I watched their operation and fell into contemplation. After a while, the two of them walked hand in hand into Zhuangting, but they seemed to have forgotten about me. Fortunately, Uncle San suddenly remembered me, otherwise I would have had to stand there. Speaking of Zhuangting, I carefully observed the woman. She was about 1.6 meters tall and had a very good figure. It can be said that she was a real loli. When I watched her fall in love, Uncle San came behind me at some point, but I was completely unaware until I turned around and realized him. The smile on Uncle San's face was like this. Third uncle couldn't help but shiver. When he saw me turn around, he smiled at me and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to the lobby." After listening, I nodded and followed him. Now, I still have a lot of doubts about third uncle, but time will tell me the answer. My third uncle and sister-in-law have opened a funeral home called Tang. Because he hasn't been back here for decades, he has been very busy lately and can only wait a few days to teach me magic. He also arranges time for me, such as taking care of Tang. Do you dare to believe it? An adult called a child who had just arrived here to take care of a funeral home, indicating that they were also very lazy. I received 4 tasks in the morning, without a doubt, all of which were assigned to me by my third uncle. The first task was to tell the carpenter at the nearby shop to make a box of high-quality walnut wood and deliver it to the funeral hall before the afternoon. The second task was to buy a lot of vegetables, but my third uncle only gave me 20 yuan. After buying the vegetables that my third uncle asked for, I didn't get a penny, and I even posted 15 yuan. The fourth task was to wash clothes. I washed them for about a few tens of minutes before finishing, and the last thing was more important. Although my third uncle asked me to go alone to incense those sealed little ghosts, I nervously walked into the innermost room of the Hall of Rebirth, and soon arrived. I carefully pushed open the door, and the long-torn wooden door made a creaking sound as it was pushed open. I saw 10 jars inside and carefully perfumed the little ghosts before quickly escaping. I walked to the door of the Hall of Rebirth and watched the bright sunlight outside. I slowly fell asleep. In my dream, I saw people in the village greeting me and waving at them. I missed them again. When I woke up, my third uncle and sister-in-law had already returned, and he also brought me some good news. I looked at their excited expressions, and my heart began to get excited. Just as I was about to ask what the good news was, my third uncle quickly spoke up and said, "You have passed the celestial teacher's assessment. Now, just go see the celestial teacher and he will tell you something, and you can be like us." I was stunned for a moment and then screamed frantically, "Great! Great!" Because things happened so suddenly. I excitedly opened my phone and was about to call my parents to congratulate them, but my hand was in mid-air. My third uncle pulled me onto the sofa and told me that they had been looking for the Heavenly Master early this morning. My third uncle said that the Heavenly Master only calculated my birth date and agreed. After listening to this, I said, "But as a Taoist, I am not too young." After listening, my third uncle told me that the Heavenly Master can allow me to grow up to 17 years old directly. 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I looked at Uncle San and exclaimed happily, "That's great! Great!" Uncle and sister-in-law looked at me like crazy and laughed happily. Then uncle and sister-in-law went to the room to get things, and I waited there. Their speed quickly came out in no time. Uncle blew a whistle and the white crane flew from afar. The white crane's speed was faster than before and arrived in no time. We climbed on the back of the white crane and waited for us to sit down. Uncle sat on the neck of the white crane, and the white crane took off. My beautiful sister-in-law and I were looking at the beautiful scenery at a fast speed, flying and flying. Uncle San called me out and I returned to him. He pointed to a building in the distance and said, "Look. It's about to arrive." I carefully looked at the building in the distance and saw that it was a very Chinese-style ancient building, which looked 7 parts like a temple and 3 parts like an ancient building. The third uncle drove the white crane and quickly led us to the front of the ancient building. After my third uncle and sister-in-law came down, they took me inside. The main door of the building looked like it was made of golden nanmu, and there was an 8 trigrams array in the middle of the door. The third uncle pushed open the door and we entered. There were many red pillars inside, as well as many magical tools, but they were protected like treasures in a museum. As I walked, I thought to myself, this building cannot be a museum, right? How do you think to me? It's quite different. I looked at Uncle San with a puzzled expression. Uncle San seemed to understand our gaze and smiled at me. We were climbing the stairs, and the wooden planks looked nice, but I didn't know what it was. Moo. After walking about 3 laps, we arrived at the top floor. Third uncle smiled at me again. His smile was very handsome, as if on a hungry and cold night, a handsome guy had brought you a lot of food and coal. Uncle San opened the door and signaled for me to enter. I saw another handsome guy sitting inside. As I looked left and right, there was no one left except for this handsome guy. I looked at Uncle San in confusion and saw Uncle San gesturing with his hand that the Heavenly Master was him. I was surprised and immediately took out the paper Uncle San gave me, knelt down on one knee, and handed it to him. He picked up the paper and said, "Lu Siqing, right?" "Yes, why is there no sound?" I carefully looked at the Heavenly Master and saw him looking at his phone. The content of the phone was Uncle San sending me my resume on WeChat. The Heavenly Master nodded, and then a thunderbolt suddenly appeared. It hit me before I could react, and soon I felt the pain in my body. I felt flames burning through my body, and I wanted to scream, but I couldn't, so I could only silently endure it. Before my meaning was about to disappear, Lei finally stopped. The Heavenly Master looked at me with satisfaction and said, "All right Lu Siqing, now I wish you a very powerful Taoist." I looked at my own hand and saw that the tender hand had turned into a very powerful one. I looked at the mirror in the distance, and there was a very handsome man in that mirror. As I was mesmerized by it, the Heavenly Master suddenly spoke up and said, "Lu Siqing, now you are not a child anymore. Starting from today, you are our 300th place Taoist. I wish you and your master and senior sister a happy life." I don't know why. I knelt down to the Heavenly Master, kowtowed 3 times, and then went out. 8. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A powerful Heavenly Master can increase or stay a human's lifespan at a fixed age with just one thunderbolt. Third uncle also has this ability, and of course, there are many Taoists with this ability. However, few can be called famous Taoist masters. These 4 words are not suitable for ordinary Taoists to refer to as their famous Taoist masters. Currently, there are only 20 famous Taoist masters in this world. Memories from 50-100 years ago. I was born to witness my third uncle and sister in law, sitting on a white crane and leaving, gesturing behind us a few times. I sat on the back of the white crane, thinking to myself that I had finally become a Taoist. Thinking about it, I felt very happy in my heart. At that moment, Uncle San suddenly told me, "What are you proud of? You are just a young Taoist from Maoshan now. You have just started, so don't be too proud." "Young man," I confidently look at Uncle San. "I can learn all your skills in just 2 months. I will become a true Taoist then, ha ha ha." When Uncle San saw me so proud, he sighed and said, "Shaoqing, let me tell you a reality. As a young Taoist like you in Maoshan, you still need to cultivate for more than 3 years. It's just because your talent is extremely high. If your talent is only so insignificant, you probably need to cultivate for more than 10 years, and if you can't cultivate, it won't be 3 years." After hearing this, I confidently looked at Uncle San and told him to rest assured that I will definitely complete it. 3 years. I can successfully cultivate. Uncle San, I smiled and turned back, continuing to drive the white crane. After returning to Zhuangting, my third uncle and sister in law led me to practice. The training location was in the backyard of Zhuangting, in the underworld below. When I heard it was the underworld, I asked my third uncle in confusion, "Why do you still need to go to the underworld to practice?" My third uncle confidently said, "We have cooperation with the underworld." I looked at my confident third uncle and couldn't help but feel confused, but later I found out. Time keeps spinning, as if accelerated. Ha 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 ha! A young Taoist came to the courtyard, laughing wildly, crazily, very crazily. The two people around him couldn't help but ponder as they watched him go crazy. That's right, that person is me. I have completed my cultivation now. 10 years. 10 years. 10 years have finally passed. I shouted happily. Finally, the two people beside me couldn't hold their breath anymore. Calm down, you're so crazy, don't be struck by lightning. I looked at Uncle San angrily. Uncle San is so happy that you said I'm going to be struck by lightning. Are you so unlucky? You should encourage me until you die first. After hearing my words, Uncle San gave me a blank look and ignored me. However, my sister Law still congratulated me happily, and I was happy to bow back like her. After a while, the third uncle came to me with a bundle and said, "Kid, I see that you have almost completed your cultivation. After being tested by the Heavenly Master, you can now leave the mountain." Congratulations. Humph, now the Heavenly Master has a task assigned to you. I was very shocked when I heard this. Why did the Heavenly Master personally assign me a task? Uncle San gave me another white look and then said, "Every Taoist who goes down the mountain must undergo a test. If your test results are not good, then you must go down to the mansion again. It will take more than 10 years to rebuild." After listening to this, I saluted Uncle San and said, "I promise to complete the task." Then I went down the mountain. Baiha took me to the market town at the foot of the mountain. Now it has become a city. In the face of this sudden change, I can't help but be surprised. I jumped off Baiha's back, and then went to the city. I saw that the street was very wide, cars were everywhere, and there were stores around the guardrail, full of electric cars, bicycles, and beside the guardrail. People went to and fro in tall buildings. People laughed and said, "That's exactly what those kids said." I could not help sighing. As I walked, I came to a community. When I saw the words, "Longxiang Still Lives," written on the gate, when I was practicing in the underworld, some little ghosts told me that this place was very good. An old man walked over and said, "Young man, do you want to go in?" It was only then that I realized, yes, I want to go in. The old man glanced at me and said, "Then please show me the resident card." I was stunned, but not long after, I immediately spoke up, "Sorry, I forgot to bring it. Can you please let me in for a moment? I forgot to add food to my pets at home." The old man glanced at me and thought for a while, "Okay, remember to bring it with you next time." After thanking him, I went in. Yes. Upon entering the community, I saw a map of the community. In order to avoid suspicion, I just glanced at it and walked away. The map showed that there were 9 buildings, 3 large basketball courts, a football field, and an athletics field in the community. I exclaimed, "Wow! Is the development of the country so fast now? If it were in the past, only key development areas would have such a configuration." As I walked, I arrived. There were many people with children in the garden of the community, and many couples chatting, but more elderly people were sitting there gossiping. However, I saw something different from everyone else. People, about. At a height of 5 or 6 meters, there was a woman with black smoke emanating from her body, and the countdown to life had already been displayed on her head. However, these could only be seen at that time, seeing the black smoke on her body that most people cannot see, unless it is in the eyes of yin and yang. I looked at it and whispered, "I remember when I was in the underworld, Uncle San told me that black smoke on my body won't last for 3 days. Then, I took 3 steps and took 2 steps to block the woman in front of her. She looked at me in confusion, and when she was wondering, I said, "Miss, you're going to die." As a result, he picked up his bag from now on. She threw herself at me and shouted, "Are you sick?" She cursed so hard that everyone around her focused their attention on us. In their eyes, I was just fine, but only I knew that if I didn't help her anymore, she would really die. Then I pulled her to a quiet place, and she was looking at me angrily. It was better to wait for her to curse. I told her, "Miss, please believe me. I am a Taoist. In the eyes of others, you are a refreshing girl, but only I can see that you are emitting black smoke. This is accurately recorded in the Taoist teachings. You only have 3 days left to live with black smoke," she sneered. "But when I say I'm still the king of hell, will you believe me when I tell you I'm going to die?" After hearing this, I anxiously said, "Your name is Deng Xiyang. You are 19 years old this year. My grandfather suddenly died a week ago. By the way, your parents died suddenly before you were 12 years old. Including your younger brother. After they died, you lived with your grandfather. And after your grandfather's death, your luck suddenly became very bad. Everything you do will fail, right? 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. She looked at me in confusion and took a cold breath. You were all right, which indeed added some credibility to your words. However, you have been following me and understanding some of my family, so as a person, you will know. When he didn't believe me, I thought for a while and quickly spoke up. I also know you got lost with your mother when you were 6 years old. It took Mom and Dad a few days to find you. After finding you, your mother and father gave birth to a younger brother for you. To protect you. But not long after, your younger brother and your parents both died mysteriously. After hearing this, she was obviously taken aback. Why do you know everything? I told you I'm a Taoist, you have to believe me. You're smoking black and won't survive for 3 days. After listening, she thought for a moment, well, then I'll trust you first. I finally let go of the boulder in my heart and continued, you take me to your house first, I want to see what it is, but now I estimate that the yin energy in your house is heavier than on you. After hearing this, he hesitated and told me, what? No, it's impossible. My grandfather and I didn't provoke anyone either. My preliminary judgment now is that you have been using bowls that others have given you recently, and there are also wooden stools that others have given you at home, right? Deng Xiyang took a cold breath after listening. What, are you sure it's that thing? Yes, that's right. The bowl someone gave you is probably for the dead to eat at the intersection. If the wooden stool is broken, the yin energy will be heavy, but the person who gave you it sprinkles corpse oil on the broken wooden stool, which will make your luck even heavier. Also, did someone give it to you before your parents died? After hearing a bag of blessings, Deng Xiyang looked at me in shock. Before he could react, I continued, the bowl of yin energy given to the dead at the intersection is usually very heavy, and the bad wooden stool combined with corpse oil will have even heavier yin energy. In addition, the blessings given by your relatives are beyond redemption. The blessings are divided into good and bad, and good fortune will eventually bring good luck, while bad blessings will worsen bad luck. If it weren't for your Ba-Zi being too prosperous and Ba-Zi being pure yang, then you would probably be more unlucky. After hearing this, she looked at me in great fear. Duh, master, I am the last blood of our family. Can you save me? I smiled with relief. I happen to lack some merit, so I will help you if your family needs something. By the way, I want to tell you. To drive away ghosts, you need to know these things. Feilu, jade artifacts are considered auspicious and helpful in warding off evil. However, it should be noted that purchasing counterfeit and inferior products should be avoided. Inverted broom. Turn the broom upside down and lean it against the corner of the wall before going to bed, which can ensure a safe night. Breaking the middle finger. This is an emergency measure, and if there are no other tools available, stabbing blood with the finger can be used as a means of exorcism. Red line ghost hunting. By placing a bowl of clean water, preferably rainwater that has not yet fallen to the ground, on the outer edge of the bowl and tying a treaty, and then placing the bowl under the table or bed, sometimes in conjunction with the act of burning oil, to expel ghosts. Hanging Zhong Kuei statue. Zhong Kuei is known as the king of ghosts, and his image is used to drive away ghosts, especially those who like to catch little ghosts. Ancient coins dispel ghosts. Hanging ancient coins, such as Fangkong Tongbao, with a red thread around the neck, because ancient people believed that ancient coins, after being touched by many people, could gather yang energy and play a defensive role. Hanging Bagua diagram. Hanging Bagua diagram at the entrance of a house is believed to prevent ghosts from entering. I'm telling you these things because my skills are not very high, and I have to go back to seek advice from my master before I reach the age. Only after the master agrees can I help you. I'm teaching you these things to protect myself within 3 days, and I can help you in 3 days. By the way, the above were taught to me by my master and sister. Don't tell anyone except you. Because it is uncertain whether you are surrounded by people or ghosts, ghosts can deceive people. At exactly 12 o'clock in the evening, if anyone calls you, don't agree, especially the deceased. Then I took out a jade and handed it to her. When in danger, you take out this jade and I will come over. By the way, before you go home, burn all those broken bowls and wooden benches. It's best to go to the temple to burn them, or you can tell the monks inside to help you deal with them. Be sure to protect yourself these 3 days. After she finished speaking, she thanked me and we left. 10. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After Deng Xiang returned home, she took the broken bowls and wooden benches from her home to the temple. The monks looked at these things and couldn't help but sigh, almsgiver, your 8 characters are really hard, Amitabha Buddha. Then the monks brought the broken bowls and wooden benches to the Buddha. Then, a tall monk shouted and beheaded him. As his voice sounded, the hammer in his hand also smashed towards the bowl and wooden stool. With a loud bang, the monk was unexpectedly bounced off. The other monks were also stunned, including Deng Xiang. What? Deng Xiang and the monk spoke in unison, only to see a black smoke suddenly appear in front of the Buddha. The ancestor who followed the sound couldn't help but be surprised, what the hell is going on? How could this be possible? Before the monks and Deng Xiang could react, a zombie appeared out of thin air. Its appearance shocked everyone on the scene. Just as they were still staring, the jade in Deng Xiang's chest felt something. It flew out of his chest and saw the jade rushing straight towards the zombie. The zombie was still jumping and chasing the monk. As soon as the jade touched the zombie shouted loudly and the zombie felt pain. It jumped over from the Buddha statue. When the monks reacted, the zombie was about to burst out of the temple. At that moment, there was another elderly one. Monk, throw the talisman at the zombie in hand. As soon as the zombie comes into contact with the talisman, a lot of sparks suddenly burst out. The zombie suddenly stands upright and falls down. Before the old monk can charge up, this will be a sudden moment of attention. He rushed towards the old monk with his teeth bared, and the old monk was clearly surprised. Then, he turned around and ran away. The other monks immediately took out a bag of glutinous rice from the study room. Then, the monks opened the bag and sprinkled glutinous rice on the left, right, and front roads like zombies. As soon as the zombie touched the glutinous rice, it immediately retreated. The glutinous rice it touched changed from milky white to pure black. Then, the monks took out symbols and pasted them on the back of the zombie. The zombie clearly felt pain and jumped 3 times, escaping the glutinous rice circle and jumping straight towards the nearest monk. The little monk closest to him was obviously stunned in place, no matter how others called him. He didn't move. Just at this critical moment, a peachwood sword fell from the sky. The peachwood sword emitted a golden light and swung towards the zombie at an extremely fast speed. The zombie clearly didn't react and was cut in half by the peachwood sword. As soon as everyone reacted, the zombie had already turned into 2 halves. Then, 1 to 3 flavors of true fire fell from the sky and burned straight towards the zombie. When everyone realized that the zombie had turned into powder and was searching for someone to help them, I fell from the sky. As soon as I touched the ground, I immediately walked in the direction of Deng Xiang. As I guessed, it was your relatives who did something good, and everything that happened to you recently was inseparable from your only relative. I can directly say that the person who caused your family's death, bad luck, and loss of loved ones is your sister. Law. After hearing this, Deng Xiang was obviously surprised. How could this be? My sister. Law loves me the most. How could it possibly harm my whole family? After hearing this, I didn't explain much. I held her hand and realized that it was very soft, like a marshmallow. However, I didn't think much because there was something more important waiting for her. I summoned the white crane, and then I sat on it. Seeing Deng Xiang still in a daze, I immediately used a spell to make her fly onto the back of the white crane. At that moment, he regained his senses and said, "Where are we going?" "I'll take you to find my master." On the way to Zhuangting, I told him that your sister. Law probably found someone who knows magic. I think his purpose in doing so is to save her beloved. As for why he came to your family, it was purposeful. It is possible that he couldn't bear to see your family so happy, so he found someone who knows magic and put a death spell on your family. He also cursed your family. This curse was the black smoke I saw earlier, and now you can't go back home because your home has become a place for practicing zombies. You will probably be killed by zombies and ghosts when you go home now. Deng Xiang was very sad after hearing this. It's impossible. How could sister. Law be like this? How could he do such a thing even though he is such a good person to comfort her? I told him, people are even more terrifying than ghosts and monsters. I believe you have heard of them before. I am afraid of ghosts, but ghosts have not hurt me at all. I am not afraid of people, but people have hurt me all over the body. Human hearts are even more terrifying than ghost hearts. Human hearts are dangerous, and no one knows the arrival of accidents. It's another journey, and neither of us spoke. I can tell she's very sad, but in fact, I concealed that zombie. It's her ancestor. Due to a curse, it caused his ancestor to become an eternal corpse, and her yang energy is gradually disappearing. If I were to wait a little longer, she would probably be alive and dead. If I come today. 11. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ordinary people would feel very overwhelmed when they encounter this situation, but I cannot feel this breakdown on Deng Xiang. Is his physique the same as mine? Could there be something to comfort her? While I was still thinking, the white crane let out a loud cry for some reason. I was surprised and quickly checked around the white crane. At this moment, I noticed a spear charging towards us. What's going on? After I finished speaking, I instructed Deng Xiang to hold on to the hair of the white crane. Then, I drove the white crane and made a sharp turn. Due to its lightness, I easily left the range of the spear while driving the white crane. After leaving the range of the spear, I observed the surrounding situation. Then, I found that there was a person running away on the highest mountain. I bet it was him who shot the spear. I asked Deng Xiang to cover his ears, and then I used my voice amplifier, "Lousy grass mud horse," to curse. After that, we quickly left the area. It was another beautiful journey, but Deng Xiang had no mood to go see it. So I told her that it wasn't long before I arrived at Uncle San's place. In no time, I saw her, Zhuangting. Excitedly, I pointed to her and called out to Deng Xiang, "Look there. It's almost there. You're saved." After speaking, I clearly felt her happy too. Then I quickly drove the white crane towards Zhuangting. As soon as the white crane touched the ground, I couldn't wait to jump off and shout, "Uncle San, sister. Law, I'm back." Upon hearing the arrival of the third uncle and sister. Law, he quickly walked up to Deng Xiang. The third uncle grabbed onto Deng Xiang's people, and soon Deng Xiang fainted. After Deng Xiang fainted, the third uncle asked his sister. Law to carry her to the cabin. In the cabin, two tall and capable people were entwined and spinning around. Death curse, how could someone bear to curse their relatives like this? Uncle San sighed and said, my sister. Law looked at Deng Xiang with pity in her eyes. Uncle San, is there still any way she can be saved? Uncle San looked into my eyes and said, there's another way to save her. However, the method is dangerous, and it's too easy to describe it as a near death. After Uncle San finished speaking, I pondered. Should I exchange my own life for someone else's life? After pondering for a long time, Uncle San, tell me. Uncle San was obviously taken aback. He didn't expect this kid to be so honest. Alright, then I'll tell you what to do. You need to go to Deng Xiang's house, find the thing with the heaviest yin energy, destroy it, and remember to use Taoist methods to destroy it. Now her house has become a place for practicing corpses, and you may encounter 3 or more centenary-old corpses. However, I estimate that with your ability, you should be able to resist 3 centenary-old corpses. After all, you are already wearing a purple robe. But remember, if you can't fight, don't run away. Try to lead them to the sunlight, because they are not millennium-old corpses yet and are still afraid of the sun. When you cannot escape, use time to pause. You can pause your skill time for at most 9 seconds or less, and then for at least 11 seconds. I think in 9 seconds, you can escape or seal a zombie. Anyway, remember the master's words, don't be too eager to fight and come back safely. After speaking, Uncle San and Sister. Law entered the room together, and you helped me get the magic weapon. After a while, I set off on the road, sitting on the back of the white crane, enjoying the calm before the storm.